go from, so now you're in pilot school, but you're still in Oklahoma. What happened next?
They finally shipped us off to Cuero, Texas. Quero, Cuero, I'm not even sure. Again, a town the size of Glasgow. We looked it up in the atlas to see what we were getting into. It looked like it was the same size as Glasgow. When we got there, we found that maybe they were the same size, but 90% of the population was Negro, so they didn't really live in town. So it was about the size of Nashua, with a bunch of Negro families out in the suburbs. But so what? Had an attorney there who was called in from the reserves and military service. He was one of the instructors. Nice guy. Can't remember his name. But that's where we learned to fly and got our basic 10 hours of flying training so we could solo. And we had with a low-wing PT-7, I think they called them, cute little airplane. 2 seats in the top of it with a sliding plexiglass type window over the top of it so that the instructor sat in front, the student sat in back, and he could shout at you and tell you what you were doing wrong. And we soloed I soloed while I was there. Usually after 10 hours you were expected to. And soloing meant you took the plane off, flew it around the airport, got back down on the ground without killing yourself. So we stayed there and then took some more training after that. Usually we're 2 months at the primary training, that's what they called it. And learned a little bit about navigating enough so you knew which direction you were flying, simple things like that. Then we're promoted to, I think they called it basic or intermediate, and that was at Waco. And that was where you learned to fly a airplane twice as powerful, but the same arrangement with the seats and the canopy. And there we learned to fly at night and find our way around at night and learn to navigate so you can go 50 or 100 miles away and find your way back. And about the time we got to the end of basic training, the next step would have been to go to either a single engine advanced training facility or a multi-engine training facility. And of course all of us who wanted to be hot rods were going to be fighter pilots, but those of us who were too tall or too heavy automatically became bomber pilots. But we understood this nobody ever told you anything in the Air Force. You always went by gossip. But we understood that there was a shortage of people who wanted to be navigators. That wasn't heroic like being a pilot. So all of us who were qualified to be pilots with our number 9 and also qualified to be our number 9 navigators were simply pulled out of pilot school. We had too many pilots and no navigators. So they shipped bundles of us off to navigating school. We went to navigating school, but there again, they picked us up, but there wasn't any room for us. So I worked around Waco for a while as a supervisor of a Mexican crew to keep the airbase clean and pick up garbage and whatnot. Ended up as a supervisor of a skeet facility for the officers, where it was my job to make sure they had plenty of birds in their loading boxes and to make sure they picked up the chips and the empty shells and whatnot. Tricky stuff again, but lots of Mexicans, lots of Negroes who did all the work. Eventually they shipped me off to Harlingen, Texas. Again, just killing time in my opinion. But at Harlingen we were sent to gunnery school, and that's where we actually learned to fire the big 50 caliber machine guns that were standard on most of the airplanes. and learned to halfway hit things while the airplane was moving, and used tracer bullets so you could tell where you were shooting and kill time there. And while we were there, well, I bypassed a bunch here. One of these times in San Antonio, where we're killing time and during getting the crew cut and all that kind of thing. Marie came over from San Diego. She had transferred to San Diego, where her sister Alice was a accountant, bookkeeper, whatever, at Consolidated Vultee. That was a tremendous two-building factory, I learned later when I went there. And that's where they built B-24s. Alice got Marie a job there as a bookkeeper, and between